Imagine a world where your voice couldn't travel faster than you could shout. A world where distance meant silence, where loved ones felt a world away, and where urgent news traveled at the speed of a horse. This was the world before one man's relentless curiosity and deep compassion for others changed everything. This is the story of Alexander Graham Bell, but it's not just about the telephone. It's a story about a visionary who taught the world to listen, connect, and dream beyond the boundaries of what was thought possible. Born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1847, young Alec, as his family called him, was surrounded by the science of sound. His father, Alexander Melville Bell, was a famous professor of elocution, the art of clear and expressive speech. His grandfather was an actor. The family business was, quite literally, the human voice. From a young age, Bell was fascinated by the mechanics of speech. He wasn't just playing with toys. He was building them. With his brother, he created a crude, talking automata model of a human skull that could be manipulated to produce a few simple words. It was a macabre yet brilliant sign of the genius to come. But Bell's obsession with sound was deeply personal. It was shaped by a profound silence that echoed through his own home. His mother, Eliza Grace Simmons Bell, began to lose her hearing when he was just a boy. Instead of accepting this as a barrier, young Bell learned manual finger language and would speak in a low, resonant tone close to her forehead, believing she could hear the vibrations. This early experience planted a seed in his mind. Communication was more than just sound waves hitting an eardrum. It was about connection, and he was determined to find new ways to bridge the quietest of gaps. Tragedy struck the Bell family when both of his brothers died from tuberculosis. Fearing for their only surviving son's health, his parents made a life-altering decision to move across the Atlantic. In 1870, they settled in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. The fresh air and new start revitalized Bell, and it was here, in his dreaming place by the Grand River, that the initial concepts for transmitting voice over a wire began to crystallize. His work, however, soon took him to Boston, Massachusetts. Following in his father's footsteps, he became a professor at Boston University School of Oratory, where he taught deaf students. He wasn't just a teacher, he was an innovator in education. He developed methods to help them learn to speak by visualizing sound vibrations. His passion and success in this field were undeniable. It was during this time that he met Mabel Hubbard, a bright and determined student who had been deaf since childhood. They fell in love, and her quiet world further fueled his urgent quest to make sound visible, tangible, and transmittable. Mabel became his muse, his confidant, and later his wife. Her father, Gardner Green Hubbard, a wealthy lawyer and one of Bell's earliest patrons, saw the immense potential in his work and provided crucial financial backing. Bell's mind was a whirlwind of ideas. He was simultaneously working on the harmonic telegraph, a device that could send multiple telegraph messages over a single wire, and a far more radical concept, the telephone. The idea was simple in theory, but revolutionary in practice. Could he make a wire vibrate with the complexities of the human voice, just as the air did? He envisioned a membrane that would mimic the human eardrum, converting sound vibrations into a fluctuating electrical current. He wasn't alone in this race. Other inventors, most notably Elisha Gray, were hot on his heels. The pressure was immense. Bell hired a gifted young electrical engineer named Thomas A. Watson. Together, they worked tirelessly in a cramped Boston attic workshop. The days were long, filled with frustration, dead ends, and countless failed experiments. They tried everything, different types of wires, membranes, and magnets. The line between genius and madness felt perilously thin. Then, on June 2, 1875, came the first breakthrough. Watson was trying to free a reed that had been wound too tightly around a transmitter. He plucked it. In the other room, Bell, holding a receiver to his ear, heard a faint twang, not just a click, but the rich, complex overtone of a plucked reed. It was the eureka moment. He realized that the current produced by that pluck was an undulating current, a perfect electrical analog of the sound. They had proven the principle, they knew it was possible. For the next 9 months, they refined the equipment, working with a feverish intensity. The patent for the telephone was filed on February 14, 1876. a date shrouded in a bit of mystery and controversy, as Elisha Gray filed a similar patent caveat just hours later. But Bell's patent was granted first, on March 7th. 3 days later, on March 10, 1876, history was made. Bell was in one room with the transmitter, Watson in another with the receiver. According to the legend, Bell accidentally spilled some battery acid on his trousers and shouted into the mouthpiece. Not for the sake of an experiment, but in genuine distress. "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." In the other room, Watson dropped the receiver he was holding and rushed in, ecstatic. He hadn't just heard a click or a buzz. He had heard clear, distinct words. The telephone was born. The world had just shrunk in an instant. That first phone call was the spark that lit a global fire. Initially, people were skeptical. At the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia in 1876, Bell's invention was tucked away in a small corner, largely ignored. But when the Emperor of Brazil, Dom Pedro II, picked up the receiver and heard Bell reciting Shakespeare from across the room, he exclaimed, "My God, it talks!" Suddenly, the world was paying attention. The Bell Telephone Company was formed in 1877, and the revolution began. Phone lines spread like spiderwebs across cities, then states, then nations. Businesses could close deals in minutes instead of weeks. Families separated by hundreds of miles could hear each other's voices. Doctors could be summoned in an emergency. The telephone didn't just change communication. It restructured society itself. But for Alexander Graham Bell, the telephone was just one chapter in a lifetime of relentless innovation. He once said, "The inventor is a man who looks around upon the world and is not contented with things as they are. He wants to improve whatever he sees, he wants to benefit the world, and he lived by that creed. He never stopped exploring." Worried about infant mortality after his own son died in infancy, he designed a vacuum jacket that was a precursor to the modern iron lung. Fascinated by flight long before the Wright brothers, he conducted extensive experiments with massive, man-carrying kites at his summer home in Baddeck, Nova Scotia. His Aerial Experiment Association made significant contributions to aviation, including the development of the aileron, a key component for controlling an aircraft's roll. He turned his attention to the sea, developing hydrofoils boats that could lift out of the water at high speeds. His HD-4 hydrofoil set a world water speed record in 1919 that stood for over a decade. He even invented an early version of a metal detector to try and locate the bullet lodged in President James Garfield after an assassination attempt. And his first love, sound, was never far from his mind. He developed the photophone, a device that transmitted speech on a beam of light. Though impractical at the time, it was the intellectual ancestor of modern fiber optic communication. Over a century before we were streaming data on light, Bell had already conceived of the basic principle. He also became a major benefactor to the scientific community, helping to found the journal Science and serving as the second president of the National Geographic Society, transforming it from a small academic club into the global institution we know today. Alexander Graham Bell passed away in 1922 at his beloved Nova Scotia estate. On the day of his funeral, every telephone in North America was silenced for 1 minute as a tribute to the man who had given them a voice. His legacy is not just a piece of technology in our pockets. It's a testament to the power of a single, determined mind fueled by compassion. He was driven by a desire to help his deaf mother and wife, and in doing so, he gave the entire world a new way to connect. His life reminds us that the greatest innovations often come not from a desire for fame or fortune, but from a simple human need to reach out, to understand, and to be understood. He showed us that no barrier, not even silence, is permanent when faced with human ingenuity and a heart full of purpose. So the next time you pick up your phone to call a friend, send a text, or watch a video, take a moment to remember Alexander Graham Bell, not just the inventor, but the teacher, the humanitarian, the husband, and the dreamer who refused to accept the world as it was and dared to imagine the world as it could be. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories of the innovators who shaped our world, and share this video with someone you'd like to connect with. See you in the next one.